Hello, and welcome to another video. As you know pretty well by now, my name is Raoul Foot. This is Harry Potter Fan Theories. I've been doing this channel for a couple months now, and today in this video we are going to be discussing what if Neville was the chosen one. Now, I know that people have talked about this in the past, but it's just such an interesting topic that we could not talk about it. And so here we go. Before we start this video though, remember that you can subscribe down below. Right down there. You see that little red button? That's the subscription button. Click that and like the video too. Comment below what you want me to talk about and all of that good stuff. Once I get to 150 subscribers, and I will do a Harry Potter quiz online, a hard one, to see how well I do. Because I personally think I am one of the biggest Harry Potter fans out there. I have read the book about 15, 20 times in my lifetime. It was the first book series I had ever taught myself how to read. And just imagine reading the first book when you're like 5. But yeah, anyways, let us get into talking about what if Neville was the chosen one. Now, to start out this video, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of details about the Harry Potter series. If you haven't read it before, then I don't know why you're watching this video, because there will be spoilers ahead. But if you have, then here's a refresher. Voldemort, or he who must not be named, because if you say his name, then you're just calling him to you, as we learn in the 7th book. But because his name is tabooed. But anyways, he who must not be named decides that learns about a prophecy that is made. And the prophecy, well, this prophecy, as you very well know, goes as such. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, and the Dark Lord shall mark him as his equal, but he shall have the power the Dark Lord knows not, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies. Sorry about that, guys. I'm new to making videos, so just bear with me. But we know that prophecy very well, because Professor Trelawney is having a meeting with Dumbledore, and as that meeting is going on, she gives the prophecy. As we know, Severus Snape hears that prophecy, and he takes it back to Voldemort. And Voldemort decides in the book that Lily Potter's son, Harry, is the one the prophecy is talking about. And so Voldemort goes after Lily Potter's son. And because of that, Lily and James Potter sacrifice themselves to protect their own son. And Voldemort falls that day. But now, let us take a different turn. Let us say that it wasn't Harry Potter who Voldemort marked as his equal that night. Say it was Neville Longbottom. Now, this is where things get a little complicated, because as you know, Voldemort could have marked anybody as his equal, but he decided to make it Harry. But say that he hadn't decided to make it Harry, but he made it Neville. Now, the way I see what would happen is he would go after Neville's parents, or not even him. Things could happen the same, but you may be thinking, but wait, mark him as a sequel. Doesn't that mean that Voldemort has to actually kill the parents in order, or kill, or try to kill Neville? Yes and no. As you know, Alice and Frank Longbottom, well, at least Frank Longbottom was an Auror. They were both Aurors working for the Ministry of Magic. So they could have been working when Neville's grandmother was watching him, or a family member was watching Neville. Because, as you remember, this is a dangerous time. All the dark wizards are out and about, working with Voldemort and all of that good stuff. And so, Voldemort could have easily been able to get to Neville, and he could have been able to kill Neville, or kill Neville, as we very well know it doesn't work because marks him as his equal. Will mark him as his equal. And that could be because his grandmother dies to protect him. I know that's sad, and that's what takes us off the main storyline, but just say that happens. And I know you may be thinking, who's going to be left to take care of Neville? Well, he has other family members, doesn't he? That's so Neville's grandmother could die to protect him, giving him powers the Dark Lord knows not, and enhance his chances of survival. Now, Neville survives, his parents are still alive, and Voldemort dies that night, or he becomes something less than human that night, less than the horriblest death, darker than the horriblest death out there. He becomes something more than Wisp, as we very well know he is in the book series. So that just means that Alice and Frank Longbottom are alive. They probably get home to take care of Neville. And as we know, later on, this time Bellatrix, Barty Crouch Jr., and her husband, Rodolphus Lestrange, they will all have a reason to torture the Longbottoms because of their son, he is gone. And they may think, it's very believable now that they have a reason to believe that they know where Voldemort is, to be reunited with him. And so, Alice and Frank Longbottom are still tortured with the Cruciatus curse, and they still go insane. Now, what I believe would happen next is Neville would go to live with his Neville would go to live with. Actually, no. They'll be tortured, but not to insanity. What will happen is he'll live with his parents. He'll be the chosen one. And then, as we all know, he'll be going to Hogwarts. And now I'm going to backstream you. Let's go to Harry Potter now. Because if Harry Potter isn't the chosen one, then he doesn't lose his parents. But what I believe does happen, because at this point, I believe that Dumbledore would have the Fidelius charm placed on the Longbottom's house, and that he would give it to somebody in the family. But that would just mean that someone in the family would have to give up their location. So somebody would have to be a spy against the Order of the Phoenix, which I believe would happen. And so that just leaves us with one question. What would happen with Harry Potter? Well, what I believe would happen is Harry Potter would live with his parents for a while, but Sirius Black never would have been framed for murder because nobody would have given Voldemort information about Harry Potter because Voldemort wouldn't be asking for information about Harry Potter for one. And so that would just mean that Harry would be able to live with his parents, but Bellatrix and all of them would torture Harry's parents instead for information about where Voldemort is hiding. So they would go insane. And so, but the thing is, Sirius, not being an Azkaban, being a free man, would still be able to take Harry in. And I believe, and because Dumbledore doesn't need that, the charm protection, the family bond protection that was in place in the main series. Except Dumbledore doesn't place that, and Harry doesn't need it. He doesn't have to be forced to live with the Dursleys, and so he'd go and live with Sirius. And I'd say at Grimmauld Place, because that is Sirius's home. And so he'd be living there, and that would just mean that everything would be going good. He'd be there until he turns 11, gets his Hogwarts letter, then he'd start going to Hogwarts. And the difference is, everything in the main plot line would be different. And I'm just saying this from the perspective of it's still Harry Potter. Just from Harry Potter's perspective, everything would be different. It would just be the main book series would just be boring, basically. He'd still be doing Quidditch. I believe that Neville would still be clumsy as heck at everything, and because he has his father's wand, he wouldn't be good at magic. Because as we know, the wand chooses a wizard, and you can never have the wizard choosing the wand, or else the wand doesn't work right. And so, I believe that Harry Potter would be, I believe Harry Potter would be working for his grades and everything in Quidditch. He'd be doing Quidditch a lot more, and this would be more of a Quidditch book series. The second book, I believe that instead of Harry speaking Parseltongue, it would be Neville speaking Parseltongue, because as we know, the only reason Harry speaks Parseltongue is because he inhabited it from Voldemort's soul, piece of soul that's inside of him. That is how Harry gained that power. And so I believe that because Harry never was almost killed by Voldemort, and because Harry never became a Horcrux, that he would have no reason to be able to speak Parseltongue. And so during the dueling club, it would be Neville speaking Parseltongue and leading the Snakes, and it'd be Neville from the side. Harry would still be dueling with Malfoy and everything, because I believe that Harry would still meet Malfoy in Diagon Alley that first day that they met, and that he wouldn't like him right away, and so that would lead him and Malfoy to have that hating thing they go through. And I believe that that Harry would still become friends with Ron and Hermione and everything. And that would just mean that in the first book, it would just be Neville going through all the stuff that Harry and Ron and Hermione went through. And I don't believe he'd do as good. I believe that Dumbledore would have to save him a lot earlier on. And a part of me does believe, too, that it would still be Harry would go with him, with Neville. And Dumbledore, believing that Harry is the chosen one, will look towards Harry a lot more than Neville. It does that, and then that would mean in the second book, Dumbledore would be looking for Harry to speak Parseltongue and all that kind of stuff. Harry would still go into Chamber of Secrets with Neville, because let's tell each other the truth. We all know that Neville would never be able to survive any of the things that Harry goes through on his own, especially not in the first 3 books. In fact, by the 3rd book, we wouldn't even have a 3rd book. Well, Lupin would still be working there, but Wormtail would never have betrayed the Potters. Sirius would have never become a murderer. I mean, the Potters would never have died at all. I mean, they'd be insane, but they never would have died. and Harry would be living with Sirius. I've heard people say that he would have been given the mirror, the two-way mirror, a lot earlier on, probably in the third book, but I believe he would have been given it right to him as soon as he could walk. I believe he would have been given a two-way mirror as soon as he was like 6 or 7. Sirius would have given it to him and explained to him how it works. And so that would have led to nothing happening in the third book that happened. I mean, Lupin would be working at Hogwarts in the third book, but Harry would know that Lupin is a werewolf. You know, as we know, so the Dark Lord has to come back, and in the third book, his follower escapes and rejoins his master. And I believe what would have happened is Barty Crouch Jr. would have escaped Barty Crouch's Imperious Curse in the third book, at the end of the third book, to rejoin Voldemort. And Neville, being the chosen one, would have no idea what's coming in the next book. And now, I believe that Harry would still be entered into the Triwizard Tournament because Barty Crouch would believe, Barty Crouch and even Voldemort himself would believe that Harry Potter is a chosen one, even though Voldemort knows that Neville was the reason he died, but for some reason in Voldemort's mind, nobody knows what's happening in Voldemort's mind, will believe that Harry Potter, Harry Potter, I can touch you now, as we all know that line. I can't help but saying it. But Harry would be entered into the Triwizard Tournament, and he would go through everything he went through, because, like I said before, Neville would never be able to survive the Triwizard Tournament, and I can't even put words to it to make it seem believable in this theory, because Neville is not good. I mean, he is a great wizard, but he will never be as good as Harry Potter. And so Harry will go through the dragons, the underwater task, and he will go through the maze by him as the champion along with Cedric. And I believe that Cedric would still die, sadly. Because as we know, Harry wanted Cedric to win. And the thing is, I believe on the side though, but that just means that on the side, I believe Neville would always be able to learn that what part of the plot that was going on. Because Neville has to be useful for something, and he'd also be the one to give Harry to Gillyweed. Because, let's face it, if Harry was thinking straight at all, he'd go and ask other people what's going on. And Neville being the chosen one, because Harry would never have the lightning scar, but Neville would. I mean, he'd have no idea what it was about, because let's face it, Harry would still be Dumbledore's favorite. But Neville has a lightning scar and everything. Harry would still have the brother wand to Voldemort. And it's just, there'd be a lot that would be going on. But then we get to the 5th book, and that's still going the same. Voldemort would be back using Harry's blood instead of Neville's, who he really needed. So that would mean that Voldemort would still not be able to touch Neville, the person that he has to kill in order to survive. And that would just make everything go by a lot quicker in the plot, basically. And we'll get to that a little later on. But then that would mean that Voldemort came back. Nobody would believe Harry because Harry would be the one telling everybody because he was the one that was there. Even though Neville was the chosen one, Harry would still be the one to get to the graveyard and witness Voldemort coming back and everything. Umbridge would still work at Hogwarts. Fudge would still. I don't ever believe that Fudge hated Harry, even though it made it seem like he did because of how he was treating Harry. But what I believe would happen is Fudge would still go through everything he would go through to try to get Harry expelled, to try to make Harry seem like he's a lunatic. And I believe that the books would all go the same until the end when Voldemort thinking that it has to be Harry to get the prophecy because Voldemort marked Harry as his equal. Doesn't understand why Harry isn't able to read the prophecy. And Voldemort and Dumbledore also realizing this at the last second when he learns that Harry wasn't able to see the prophecy. Realizes it's Neville, so he takes Neville aside at the end instead of Harry and tells Neville all the details and tells Neville his plan and everything that's going on. But yeah, that is my question for today. What if Neville was the chosen one? Tell me in the comments below what you think would be different about the book if Neville was the chosen one. And like always, subscribe down below, like this video, and come back next week for another one.